Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spilled. We are your hosts, Kendall
and Delaney,
and we are very excited to spill history's hottest gossip with you today. We're coming to you live from my 80-degree living room and Delaney's 60-degree bedroom.
Yeah, it's freezing in here.
This is the second time we've recorded this episode. Yay for learning this learning curve. Before we dive in, we just want to thank everyone so much for your engagement on episode 1. It means so much to us. And if you haven't listened already, please go listen. It's all about Fulvia and the woman behind Mark Antony in ancient Rome. So it's a good one. It was first for a reason. Please go check it out. Also, if you're bored, okay, picture this. You're watching Love Island. You're a little distracted. No, yes, you want to scroll on your phone. Do this. I'll guide you through it right now. Delaney's laughing at me. Open Spotify. You're still watching Love Island. You don't even have to pause it. Open Spotify. Go to Spilled. Find the rate button. Rate it 5 stars. Congrats. You're a supporter.
Picture this. You're on an abandoned island. You find a phone. on it, already playing.
Did you know if you open up Spotify and you click on Spilled, you'll see history's hottest gossip?
Picture this. The sky opens up and all you hear is the Spilled intro music.
You're looking at the stars. The stars spelled out spilled. Okay. Anyway, yes. So go do that. Thank you for all the engagement in advance. Delaney, what are we talking about today?
Well, Kendall, thank you for leading us into today's episode. We are going to be diving into the untamed life of Miss Grace O'Malley, how a noblewoman turned into a pirate queen, ended up dominating the Western seas. She earned the name the Dark Lady of the Doona, and then eventually stands before the Queen of England. So this is going to be a hot episode, guys. Get ready, buckle up, and enjoy the ride.
So, Delaney, will you give us a little bit of historical context on where are we in the world right now? What are the geopolitical factors at play that's going to shed a little bit of light on the tensions and conflicts brewing? Set the scene.
Grace's family held power off the West Coast. They ran trade operations, naval operations, and this was all outside of English control. And so at this very same time, King Henry VIII of England had broken from the Catholic Church, as we know, to marry Miss Queen Anne Boleyn. And so this sparked some religious and political unrest along the British Isles, and England then began the Tudor conquest of Ireland, which was kind of the whole goal was to push to bring all the Irish territories together under English rule. So Grace O'Malley was born around 1530 on Clare Island, and so this is located along the west coast of Ireland. And Ireland at this point was very, very divided. We had the English, who controlled a small portion of Ireland. This is kind of the area that's around Dublin called the Pale. And so the rest of Ireland that wasn't controlled by the English was ruled by these independent Irish clans like the O'Malley family. So Grace's family held this power, very important power, mind you, off the West Coast. And they were running trade operations, naval operations, and all of this was outside of English control, which obviously, as we can imagine, pissed off the English.
It's King Henry VIII is in rule right now. Talk to me about how that is affecting the Irish clans.
So King Henry VIII was kind of notorious for his whole Tudor conquest of Ireland, wanting to push to bring all the Irish territories under English rule. But also at the same time, as we know, he separated England from the church with his marriage to Queen Anne Boleyn, and this just sparked...
From the Catholic Church.
Yeah. And so this sparked the religious, political unrest all along the British Isles. And so this is at the kind of point of Grace's life unfolding. She was born at the beginning of this happening. And this unfolds throughout the duration of her entire life. Poor girl.
Got it. Okay, so basically Ireland is mostly Catholic, Irish Catholic, and then you have King Henry VIII, who is now Protestant, and he is coming with both political and religious ambitions.
Also pushing Protestant religious beliefs onto them as well. So I think when you
I was gonna say I've never known England not to push a political belief in the 1500s.
Right, yeah, and when you add
belief.
Yeah, when you add the religion into it, it just gets heftier. Okay, so back to Grace and her family a little bit. So her father, Depardra O'Malley, he was the Lord of Umhall, and this is a large coastal territory that's in County Mayo. And you'll hear me mention County Mayo a few times throughout the duration of this episode. And this is somewhat of Grace's stomping grounds. This is where Doona Castle is located, and just kind of one of those like iconic territories that's associated with her name. So at this time during Grace's upbringing, the O'Malleys were a seafaring family, and they dominated the maritime trade in that region for their time. They were competing with the English maritime traders, and gaining more and more territory too as they expanded their clan and their influence.
Okay, great. So she's from a very powerful family. Obviously, though, she is a woman, and so I'm kind of curious to understand, like, how as a woman in this time, there's a whole podcast episode dedicated to her, so I don't want to spoil anything, but like, take us through it. What is her upbringing like?
Yeah, so she was likely born in a monastery, and so this was pretty typical, especially for a lot of the children of pirates, of sailors, whose mothers may not be in the picture, and or the mothers worked on board the ships too, or were enslaved, or, there's a lot of different options, and so the kind of place of daycare was a monastery. And so she most likely grew up there and was born there, on Clare Island. And it's kind of local legend that when she was around 11, 13 years old, throughout her early teenage years, she cut off her hair, her notorious long hair, so she was able to sneak aboard a voyage with her father. I think this is a cute story because then she gets the nickname Granuaile, or Grace the Bald. I don't think she was trying to like fool anybody. I mean, clearly people knew she was the daughter of Dabhardra, but I think it was just kind of her like childhood like way of trying to show her masculinity, defy femininity, whatever it was, to be like,
yeah, it's like a little bit of a rejection and like an equalizer. Right. I also, when I was doing a little bit of my research, you guys, she's doing research.
She did her homework.
Yes, I did do my homework. I also saw that like long hair is obviously like very risky on a ship. There's so many lines and ropes and like sails and all of that stuff. So I also saw that it likely helped her just prevent any like risks or accidents on the boat.
Yeah, I think it's so funny too. Such a good point to bring up, because it's so funny in all the art history classes I've taken, and the portrayal of female pirates always just makes me laugh because it's so unrealistic. They're
like hot and their hair is like blowing in the wind.
Exactly. It's like the long like red mermaid hair, and it's like just blowing in like Anne Bonny, and like it's like no. Like I mean I think I like the portrayal of it because it's kind of like a badass, cool kind of.
It's very romantic.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, let's be real. They most definitely did not have their long, luscious locks blowing in the wind.
Let's be real. My hair is in a slick back.
Right. It's that, and like, girl, like try to go on a boat and come. Yeah.
No.
Like it's the reality of this with no product, with no like, wow, leave it, nothing. I don't think that's realistic.
Honestly, so I have like a quota of one time that I can say I used to sail in this episode, and I'm going to use it right now. I used to sail. I actually did always wear my hair in braids because the wind doesn't catch it as much, and it like you can wear a hat and everything. So
I think that's the one like accurate portrayal. In like some shows, they will like Black Sails. I cannot advertise and promote that show enough. If this episode inspires you guys,
could promote it more. If you are looking for a sponsorship,
please
just email me at Spilled History.
No, but seriously, Black Sails is an amazing show. If this episode sparks your pirate interest, I would definitely recommend you go and watch that on Netflix. But they have a really accurate portrayal of it. They do a lot of the braids, a lot of different kind of updos that I think are probably the closest historically accurate portrayal you'll kind of find in mainstream media these days. But let's get back to the task at hand. Let's get back to recognizing Miss Grace over here.
Okay, great. So we'll keep on track. She early teenage years right now. Does she have like siblings or brothers? Like obviously she's kind of like fulfilling a man or a masculine role in the family dynamic right now. Or others?
She had a brother, which is kind of surprising when people find out that she inherited her father's fleets and estates.
Spoiler alert.
Right, I know. Isn't that funny? And so it leaves people to think like why there's all this speculation. This was a time of legends, mind you guys. Like legends, folklore, tales, long lost, treasures, and yada yada. That's kind of this era. This is when things are happening. This is Treasure Island. Think that, okay? And so again, a lot of the information that we get from this time period, we like to just automatically label as folklore or stories or tales, because we really don't know if they're 100% true or what was, you know, dramatized back then.
I actually was reading a really informative Reddit forum about Delaney doing research is JSTOR, literal academic publications, and me doing research is going on Reddit. But, and I'm not quoting this as fact because I've told y'all it's from Reddit, but someone on Reddit was saying that, like, especially the Irish pirates, like, they were viewed obviously as an enemy to England. And so, like, English history, which was way better kept and prioritized, like, only ever viewed them as villains or just, like, didn't include them in history. We know England does not like to include their unsavory history in education.
That's on trend for England.
Yeah, so, like, only very recently have these stories started coming to light. And so from there, like, this me having an entire history podcast and then quoting Reddit the whole time is ridiculous. But I just thought it was an interesting layer to add that, like, most of this history was kept alive through folklore and through, like, oral stories and, like, verbal legend in Ireland. And it only very recently came out, like, through England and to the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's why I love Reddit. But anyway, there was a bunch of speculation, obviously, around, like, why her brother didn't inherit these fleets and estates, and none of it is really credible enough for us to get an answer. So all we know is Grace
Delaney has much higher standards with what she's willing to quote on this podcast. But you know what? I'm bringing a layer of fun Reddit and spontaneity.
Yeah. I love it. Anyway, you bring the fun stuff, I bring the real stuff. Moving on, this is where the plot thickens. This is my favorite part of the story. So, during a storm, okay, guys, I want you to think big, massive, thick, wet wave.
What? Whoa.
Woo. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'm all right.
That's going in.
No, I can't. I want you guys to imagine. It is. You're in the water. You're in the water. Paddle, paddle. Splish, splash. Oh, well, you're on a ship, okay? There's a massive storm. Huge waves crashing over you. You're a hot damsel
Imagine
sailor.
This, everyone. You're hot.
You're hot.
Sorry, we know you are all hot. Anyway, I think what Delaney's trying to describe rather provocatively is you're a sailor and you're drowning.
Right, you're in a storm. And this beautiful, crazy looking, bald female pirate. Oh my God.
This is getting so out of hand.
Oh my God, now I'm just thinking of Will Smith
Surely
jokes.
she had hair again at this point.
Anyway, during an aggressive storm, Grace, she saves this drowning sailor. And it's kind of an adorable love story, and it's, you know, hopefully true. I don't know if it is, but if so, it's an adorable story because, yeah, basically he's drowning, he's shipwrecked, and Grace comes along on the beach and saves him. And so they get married very soon after, and by all accounts, and I mean all, they were madly in love, and it's just adorable. It's so cute. Like, all the
so ladies, if Hinge isn't working, if Raya's not working for you, get on a ship. Hurricane season will be among us soon. Okay,
go to the Outer Banks.
Camp out till October. Yep. Yeah, get a ship.
Bluefin season.
What?
It's fish. It's tuna.
What does the fish have anything? Anyway, get on a boat and find you a man.
Or a tuna.
Or a woman.
Or tuna.
Or two women. Oh, you said tuna.
I said tuna.
I thought we were going into polyamory is supported on this podcast.
No, I'm talking about tuna. So they fell in love. However, I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, guys. Happiness did not last very long. Darn. Sadly, there was a internal feud with the Macmahomes of Ballacroy. See, can I just add that name scares me? Hello, the Macmahomes of Ballacroy.
Can we hear that in an accent?
Yeah, I got you. Can I do it in a British accent instead? The Macmahons.
No, that would be historically
Balacroy.
inaccurate.
It's like the Peaky Blind, the Macmahomes of Balacroy.
I think we need an Irish accent.
Macmahome. Nah, I'm just getting more aggressive as it goes.
Macmahons, a Balacroy. Wait, was that good? Be so honest.
Macmahomes of Balacroy. Macmahomes of Balacroy.
Anyway, guys, by episode like 50 or so, we're gonna get really good at this.
Gas me up.
So there's a feud. Also, if you guys can't tell, our ADHD is raging today.
It's pretty bad. So this feud ended with her husband being murdered while on a deer hunt. He goes out, la-di-da-di-da, tries to shoot a deer, and he gets shot. So the story goes,
oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was just such an abrupt way to say that. And I knew what happened. And I was still shocked.
See, that's called good entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. So the story goes, Donald, come on, he couldn't have had a better name. Donald wanders into the forest. He's ambushed and murdered while on this deer hunt. He's out by Bunawen Castle, which, again, you'll hear that name a few more times. Pretty iconic castle. Now, we don't know which exact member of the family was responsible for his murder, for his death, but it was always understood that it was the Joyce family who were behind the ambush, who planned it and carried it out. And so why, right? You're probably thinking, why? Why, Donald, right? What did Donald do? What did Donald Duck do? What did... Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
You just went from Donald to Donald Duck to McDonald's. And so why do you think, or like, why does history think this happened? What did he do?
Local legend says that this was all part of some kind of local power feud over territory and control over Bunawen Castle. If you held the castle, you held the territory, you held the ground, and so that was a very important factor in them establishing their name, or attempting to do so, which clearly they didn't, because as we can assume, Grace did not take that lightly at all.
Yeah, okay, so what happened?
Girl, she snapped.
Oh.
Like, snapped.
I mean, I would too. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Yeah, but I'm talking, like, it wasn't like, oh, let's go outside and scrap, right? It was bad. So not only did they just murder her husband, right? To piss her off even more, the Joyce family then goes and they try to take back the castle after his death that Grace is in. They're like, we win, give us the castle. Wrongo. Once again. Grace, this is just so iconic. I love it. Grace defends it by herself, okay? By going up to her ramparts and chucking and throwing boiling water at the Joyce family.
Okay, Home Alone.
Seriously, like, okay, you're not taking my castle.
Culkin.
I know. My question is, first of all, how did she boil all that water? Enough to defend
honestly,
that?
Water is very heavy.
Right. Also, like, how did she plan it? I don't know. I don't know.
Lots of questions.
Right, but she defended it, and it was another iconic story. So after that, she like kind of gains
like, think smarter, not harder energy as well.
Yeah, and she like gains more reputation from this because everybody hears, wow, Grace O'Malley is like holding. Like, she's holding
literally
Bunawen Castle. Her husband's dead. This is a female holding a castle on her own without her husband. Not only that, she just defended it herself. So, like, yeah, big boom in her reputation. People start hearing her name. They start remembering it. Most of all, they start fearing it. And this is when she says, "Fear me more, children." She assembles a crew and begins tracking the Macmahon family to Caher Island, where they were on a pilgrimage. Okay?
So they murdered someone. And then we're like, okay, perfect. We actually have the Lord's work to do. Mm-hmm. We're going to go on a pilgrimage to this Caher Island place.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, let's go on a pilgrimage. We're one with the Lord. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, it's all BS, clearly. Because, wow, Grace did not... She really didn't hold back. I'm going to be honest, guys. This part kind of shocks me, too, because they're on this, like, peaceful pilgrimage trying to somewhat repent for their, murderous sins. And Grace tracks them down somehow, which in that time, I don't know how she did it. She tracks them down. She finds them. She ambushes them like they ambushed her husband, and specifically picks out the ones that were responsible. She felt responsible for murdering her husband and publicly executes them.
Wow.
Yeah, but honestly, the best part is she just didn't stop there. She keeps going. She sails straight, like beelines it to Doona Castle, stormed in like a boss, killed the residents, and claimed it as her new base.
So why Doona Castle? Like, what was so attractive about that specifically?
So Doona Castle is located in Northwest County, Mayo. Remember, that's, this iconic county. And this overlooks Clue Bay, Atlantic Ocean, kind of an ideal spot for a pirate queen. There she could watch over, let's say, shipping routes, sea raids, kind of maintain this control over these coastal waters. And it was also far enough from English-controlled zones that she was able to kind of offer this, like, relative autonomy, but it was also close enough to the English-controlled zones that she could challenge or defend against any threats. So it kind of put her in the perfect spot, when it came to English political tensions, religious tensions, but then also maintaining her kind of maritime pirate seafarer control. Later on, remember, poor old Donald is murdered. She's mourned. She takes her grief out on, the people responsible for it, and then later goes on to marry Sir Richard Bjorn, who was this, like, powerful chieftain from the Bjorn family of Mayo. And I think it's kind of funny because you kind of see how she ends up elevating herself. This is somewhat of a strategic marriage to consolidate power and secure these family alliances. Remember, these independent clans and these powerful families were they were ruling over Ireland. So these alliances between powerful families were very important. And, he's a powerful chieftain. She marries him. That's a pretty powerful alliance right there.
I think this is like a good testament to Grace really using everything she had at her disposal. Like, she had the ships that she inherited from her father. She had the properties that she conquested, basically, or like inherited. But then she also was a woman, and so she had the ability to marry into positions of power or into different, like you said, strategic alliances. So I think throughout this episode, we talk a lot about her leveraging her femininity and not necessarily just totally rejecting it. And this feels like a really good example of that.
Right. So lucky for Grace, there was this Gaelic custom that allowed for trial marriages. And so legend says that at the end of her trial marriage, quote unquote, to Sir Richard Bjorn, she was unsatisfied, not loving it. And so the whole idea of this, like, trial marriage was that they would be married for 1 year time, and both parties would decide if they still wanted to continue with the marriage. Let me be honest here, okay? I might be the only one in the room to think this. I'm also, like, the only one in my room, but I think we should bring this back.
I mean, I kind of like it.
Right.
I feel like
you're
it's
married
honestly
for a
the,
year.
You guys move in together for a year vibe.
Yeah. But I mean, at least it's like you kind of get the idea of, like, shared finances, shared living, shared everything, shared expenses. And then, like, if after a year you're like, okay, wait, marriage isn't for me, or it's not for us, or whatever. I love the idea. So legend says that at the end of this trial year, she iconically dismissed Richard by saying, and I quote,
in an accent,
I released you, Richard. Okay, whatever. And I think the coolest part about this whole, like, little trial marriage divorce thing is that she then proceeds to keep his castle at Rockfleet.
Yep.
Perfect. This is the Carriage-Howley.
No issue with that.
None. Woman keeps the house in the divorce.
We're snapping.
You hear the snaps. But this is Carriage-Howley castle, for your notes. She keeps this for herself, and basically she takes the kid, she keeps the house and the marriage.
So where does the Dark Lady of Doona come into this?
Right, so we kind of mentioned it a little bit before, that she, kills the people, the inhabitants of the castle. She captures it. But to put it into the timeline for you guys, this was shortly after her first husband was killed. So this is kind of in her journey in revenge and vengeance to kill the family responsible for her first husband's murder. She's in Northwest Mayo, and this is when she captures Doona Castle and takes control over it. And so this act is what earns her the nickname the Dark Lady of Doona, which I think was a very important name to her history, because it was this nickname that instilled her fearsome reputation that was in association with, revenge, violence, and therefore kind of her command over Doona Castle. So
Do you think that she was a threat because she was violent, or do you think it's because she was both female and violent?
Yes, I think it was because she was female and violent, which made her unpredictable to the eyes of men. I think there was nothing more mortifying for them than a woman who like didn't comply to societal standards and like the guidelines, you know, like they put women in a kind of box. And so I think at this time, I mean, guys, this is 1500, so this is like very
Major
very
patriarchy energy.
Yes, and very strict rules with women. So I think there was nothing scarier for especially, and I really can't emphasize this enough, guys, there is nothing, okay, more scary to an English nobleman than that of a pirate woman.
Than a crazy bitch.
Right, seriously. Like, not only is
kidding.
she Irish, but she's Irish, she's a woman, and she's a pirate. Like, that's like the triple threat right there. So yeah, I think that honestly, like, I think all men all across the seas, but especially the English, if we're thinking the West, were mortified of the idea of this, you know, beast of a woman that is terrorizing the western coastline. So she wasn't only the Dark Lady of Doona, she was also a mother.
We're snapping.
Mamacita?
Until we get some visual elements to this podcast, I'm just going to announce every time we're snapping.
Guys.
Mamacita?
She was a
mommy.
Mommy?
She was a mommy? Mamacita?
No, yeah, she was a real life mommy. 1567, Grace gives birth to her son, Tibbet na Long, which translates to Tibbet of the Ships. And
why?
Oh, let me tell you. So they're in a sea battle with these Turkish pirates who are aggressive, mind you. Like, they're notorious pirates. And at this point, she was probably around like her mid-30s, 35 to 37 years old, having her son, okay? Like,
mind you, in those days, I mean, up until maybe 10, 15 years ago, that was considered a old, and I will quote, geriatric pregnancy. So, like, not an easy pregnancy for anyone.
Right. And so not only is she, right, like, she's kind of reaching the kind of end of the quote-unquote peak fertility years, but she's literally in a sea battle with Turkish pirates, okay? And she's giving birth to her son in the hull of this ship. And as local legend story goes, she is, you know, gives birth to her son, and kind of apparently like moments, minutes, hours after her son literally leaves her womb, her men run down to the hull and start begging her for her help. They, you know, we need you, Grace. We need you up on the deck. They're going to take the ship. They're going to capture us, whatever. And so Grace wraps herself in a blanket.
Really cool that they need her. Like, to feel needed is so important, right? But also boundaries.
Hello.
Like, perhaps.
Right. But it's crazy. Like, yeah, like her men literally thought, oh my God, we're going to die. Who do we run to? Our captain who just gave birth, who's a woman in the, like, that just shows how strong she was and how respected she was by her crew. The fact that they did not.
Every mother listening to this is nodding their head. They're like, yep, that's exactly how it goes.
Right, because seriously, like, the beast of a mother, like, the adrenaline was pumping. She storms on to the deck of the ship, wraps her baby, wraps herself in a blanket, pistols in hand, and secures the victory. Legend goes, she gets up on the deck, spins around, and like all the men, all the Turkish pirates stop and stare at her in like fear and confusion, and she takes that, uses it to her advantage to shoot them all and secure them the victory. So again, how credible is the story? Damn. Probably not 100%, but I think we know that her son was born on the ship, so at least we have that. And what's really cool is her son actually ends up holding a pretty cool title later in his life. After the birth of her son in around the 1570s, 1580s, legend says that Grace lands at Howth Castle during her voyage.
And was it like, it sounds like it was pretty like customary for there to be an open door policy in these castles?
Yeah, and especially for sailors. That was kind of the idea, is that, you know, if you had a castle, a lighthouse, a tower, anything on the coastline, you were kind of open to having an open door for these sailors. Give them food, give them shelter, give them water, whatever.
Got it.
But she's rejected at the door. And so where most people, you know, would go cry in a corner or find some other place to stay, she somehow sneaks in, kidnaps the heir of the castle, who was a young boy who was playing outside. And she, you know, takes this boy, she goes to the door again and says, okay, what about now? Like, you know, I can end your whole family line, or you can let me in the damn castle. You know, she's like, I'm kind of at my wit's end here. Let me in the castle.
She got what she wanted.
Right. And so the Lord agrees in fear of his, you know, son and only heir being murdered. And the best part of this story, to be honest, is the fact that to this day, to this very day, the family that holds Howth Castle still upholds the tradition that the doors to the castle must be unlocked and open to entry during dinner time.
It's super interesting because, like, she very clearly gets what she wants. I wonder, like, how much of this was, like, nature versus nurture of, like, obviously women in that time were nurtured to believe for the most part that they are meek and subservient to men. And so, like, I'm curious if we know anything about her childhood. Like, was she raised to believe that she was equal with men, or was this very core to her personality, just like, fuck it, like, I'm just gonna go and get it, and who cares that I'm a woman, I'm gonna figure it out.
Well, so obviously, I mean, her father left his inheritance, left his fleets, his estates, his money to her. So I think there's definitely something to be said about their relationship, and his respect for her and her ability to fill a man's position, no problem, you know?
Yeah, okay, very interesting. So it kind of sounds like it's probably a little bit of both, which I think we can all agree was still very uncommon for the time. All right, so far she has gotten married, been widowed, sought vengeance, captured a few castles, got married again. At what point is she a pirate?
Well, so that's kind of coming up in her story. Her reputation continues to grow across Ireland, England, and she then becomes known as this pirate queen, and a major player in the Gaelic resistance to English rule. So
Can you dive a little bit into piracy in this time period?
yeah, so she was alive during the lead up to the golden age of piracy. That was around 1650s, 1730s. So we'll probably do a whole episode where we go into the history, the culture of piracy. But to give you guys the quick rundown for right now, pirates were basically privateers gone rogue. So during, European colonial expansion, the European powers, they kind of pushed into the Americas and other regions, and they wanted to kind of expose these vulnerable merchant ships that they found out that they could attack. With this, they saw opportunity, and so they hire these privateers. They were kind of like mercenaries that they used as naval operatives. And there was, things like Spanish War succession that led to a surplus of sailors, privateers, who then turned to piracy for work. So I would just kind of think privateers hired sailors that went rogue when given the opportunity to.
Something I came across in my research was that so when Delaney's talking about the privateers, like, that was legal and subsidized by the crown, by the British crown. And so privateers was basically the legal form of piracy. And so when it became illegal, basically the Spanish were having a big issue with the British privateers, attacking them. So the English and the Spanish had to come to an agreement that then what's now called piracy became illegal and then became pirate. So at first it was in an official capacity, but then it just totally spurred out of control. And so after it became illegal, obviously people had tasted what it could be like, and now with even less oversight, I can imagine it got quite out of hand.
I think one of the most important factors that a lot of sources leave out, and a lot of education systems leave out as well, is that the pirates were very, very big players in the slave trade game. And
no, because I've never, ever heard that, except for the first time we recorded this podcast. But before that, before that time, I had never once heard, even like in the same sentence, the slave trade and piracy.
Yeah.
And I would like to think I had a pretty good education.
Some of the pirates' largest like export, like what they made the most money off of was slave trade. And whether that was holding slaves themselves, whether that was like they held them, to work, or they held them till they sold them. They had these slave settlements on a lot of these pirate islands. They would have these slave settlements, whether they were escaped slaves or groups kind of settled along islands like Nassau, New Providence Island. And
yeah, I guess it makes sense. Like that was such a major transit route for the slave trade, but it was also one of the hot spots of piracy. Like I don't know why we don't put the pieces together a little bit more often.
Right. Like if we think Clare Island, that's a kind of, again, notorious pirate island. Nassau, these are all these iconic pirate spots that are on a map kind of located as the ideal kind of middle points to a lot of these slave trade routes. But also a lot of pirates were slaves. That was another thing. A lot of pirate captains, I want to say employed, but the better word is purchased these slaves to be their crew. What better men to take orders than ones that don't have a choice? And so to those captains at that time, it was the perfect resource. So yeah, the pirates were very, very involved within the import of slaves, but also within using the slaves themselves and holding them. So they were not excluded from that portion of history at all. And if anything, they were a very large player in the history of the slave trade.
That's fascinating. I'm so happy you brought that up. I feel like that is like, it's everything I want this podcast to do, and it's like to highlight the stuff that they don't teach you in schools or that it's just breezed over.
Exactly. So everything that we've discussed up to this point was considered illegal and piracy. So Grace was a full-blown pirate, honestly, from birth, if you ask me. I feel like piracy was just in her blood, which ultimately leads to her arrest in 1577. She's captured by the English governor, Sir Richard Bingham, which we can just assume English governor and Grace O'Malley in the same sentence is not good. Now, he does capture her, but she was released. This was either due to, like, negotiations or good political connections. We don't know which. But it definitely showed a somewhat weak point in Grace's reputation and in her life, because it showed that even somebody like her wasn't 100% untouchable, but she did get out of it. So at least we can keep that to her name.
Okay, so it sounds like Grace's reputation has clearly reached England at this point as a major pirate, which in my Reddit searches... If we get canceled for me adding depth from Reddit, so be it, guys. I'll be canceled on episode 2. That's fine. Anyway.
So early.
The piracy was also like a major factor in resistance to various thrones. So I'm guessing in this case, like given the context earlier, this is part of the resistance to this English Tudor conquest.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, part of this was in defiance of the English. And if anything, they were, taking money, taking resources from the English ships. So they were stealing from the English. They were stealing from the Spanish. And the Spanish were then getting mad at the English that the Irish were stealing from them, being like, hey, you're the English Empire. Take care of the Irish. So it was all these, a lot of tensions that just continued to grow. So it was England's worst nightmare when Irish pirates started washing up on their shores. So Grace, as we can honestly imagine, remains very powerful well into her 60s. This is rare for anyone. Let's be honest. It's hard. It's hard out here, girl. It's hard being a girl, but it's hard. And let alone being a woman.
It's hard being a girl, and it's harder to be a woman.
Mic
drop.
Exactly. I mean, and I would say it's even harder to be a woman if it's the late 1500s. I think we can give them
you're like going through menopause and like God knows what.
Yeah, and so at ages 63, guys, like 63, she's a grandmother. Grace enters Greenwich Palace to meet with none other than Queen Elizabeth I.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about a reputation.
Seriously. Queen Elizabeth did not like an audience, much less did she like a Irish Catholic female pirate. you know, like
Or did she? Like, do you think she saw herself in
I do.
Grace?
I can answer that real quick because honestly, based off of the way that the interaction went and the fact that she even agreed to it in the first place, I think Elizabeth saw something in the fact that Grace was a woman who, throughout her whole life, had found a way to somehow gain control and respect over and from men, you know, men on her crew, whether whether it was like her husband or the other Irish clans and families, you know, her father,
even her dad.
Her father left her his legacy, trusting she would be the one to be able to carry the family name on. And so, 100%. I honestly think that I think Elizabeth saw that in her, and was maybe curious as to how she was able to achieve that, or what was so special or so different about her that made her different from the way that people saw Elizabeth as somewhat weak.
So how did that interaction go?
Honestly, it was pretty tense. The two women met without translators. Grace sails to London by herself. This was pretty rare for her. She was an English noblewoman at this time, so she wasn't necessarily presenting herself as a pirate, but she was still a known pirate queen at this point. She apparently brought a dagger into the palace. She refuses to bow to the queen because she didn't recognize her as a queen or as a monarch. You know, all of this disrespect towards Elizabeth, to be honest, back to back to back. And yet Elizabeth still granted almost all of her requests, which included freeing her son of treason, relieving him of those accusations, freeing her and her entire family. And she was given permission to continue ruling over the clans her family had control.
Just to circle back to, she didn't recognize Queen Elizabeth as her queen because she didn't recognize the English rule over Ireland. And so like that's where the tensions are coming from, and that's where the quote disrespect lies. It's not like she was just like fuck the monarchy, but she was just like no, I don't,
right,
like,
you're not,
you are
my
not
queen.
my queen.
And so, and that's even when, you know, the Queen Elizabeth gives her permission to continue ruling, she still kind of laughs in her face and is like, okay, thanks.
I don't need your permission.
Like I was going to do that anyway. This was super historically significant because it was very rare that we saw Elizabeth having meetings like this, and even rarer that, you know, it was with another woman, much less an Irish pirate. And I think it shows that there was a cute little parallel between Elizabeth and Grace. I mean, they even end up passing away in the same year. And so, I think this kind of solidifies her name in this iconic legacy in both Irish and English history.
I feel like this is two really strong back-to-back episodes where the woman is not just like along for the ride. Like they're not just inheriting, and they're not just a wife or a mother. They are actively going out and claiming territory, armies. Like this actually has a lot of parallels with the Fulvia episode. So it's pretty interesting listening to them back to back. I'm wondering, Dee, like what resonates the most with you in terms of like how this translates to modern women?
I honestly think just her unapologetic nature, like the way she was just unapologetically untamed, you know? And I think I love her rejection of femininity, but still in the ways that she kind of just redefines it, similar to Fulvia. You know, I like the way she cuts off her hair, but still
buck ass Bob,
right? Bob, you know. You know what I'm talking about. But still, you know, goes through her marriages. She falls in love. She has a son. You know, she has this kind of she hits some of the landmarks of a woman's life. But at the same time, she doesn't let it stop there. You know, she did so much more. And I think it's just a testament to women to just do whatever you want and don't apologize. And even if it's to the Queen of England, girl, don't bow to nobody. So that was my side of my version of the dinner party takeaway for today's episode. Kendall, I'm curious, what is your dinner party takeaway for today?
Ooh, okay. So if you didn't listen to the first episode, a dinner party takeaway is something I like doing. My role on this podcast is representing the audience and also Reddit everywhere. Um, so the dinner party takeaway is basically like, what's that one fact that like we don't want you to feel pressure to remember everything you've learned on this podcast. It is mostly for entertainment, and if you learn a little bit something and feel a little bit smarter, then we did our jobs. So it's really like, what's that one tidbit that you can use in a conversation down the line that makes you feel a little bit smarter. Mine honestly has nothing to do with Grace herself, but I thought it was really interesting, the connection to piracy and the slave trade. That's something I just feel almost guilty for not knowing and not being taught in the past. So that, although maybe not bringing that up at a dinner party, I do feel like I have a much more well-rounded view on that time period now. Also, did you guys hear my voice crack?
Ew.
If you did, I don't really care. That does happen sometimes. So just, be cautious of that.
That was the vocal cords of a prepubescent 13-year-old boy.
I do, and the titties to match.
Oh.
Well, with that, guys,
Wow.
I'm cutting myself off. Thank you so much for listening to us. This is always it's always so fun every time we've done this, which is now 4 times, which you might be confused because there's only 2 episodes, but no, it's always a blast. Thank you guys for listening. Please engage with the podcast, obviously. And we'll catch you every other Tuesday.
Yep. Thank you guys for listening to today. See you in 2 weeks.